Okay, sir, you're on.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Antonio Perry. I'm the principal at Sweet Home High School. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's Remote Academy information session. Before we get started, I just want to take a moment just to introduce some of the people who are going to be presenting tonight. This has been a truly collaborative effort on the part of the team of people who have been a part of this. And I have to say it has not been an easy task, but through the hard work and dedication of these people, we really feel that we came up with a virtual academy that really has academic integrity. So first, I'd like to just thank, Karen Delaplant, the assistant principal of the high school, who was a part of the team, as well as student services, Ty Critelli and Scott Harriger, and Mr. Scott Wolf, who has been instrumental in helping this become a reality. So tonight, we're hoping that, through the information we present to you, we're going to be able to answer the questions that need to be answered, and you leave out with a much better understanding, and you're prepared for your son or daughter to be a part of the Remote Academy starting next week. So to start off, we'll have Karen Delaplant just start the presentation.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Like Mr. Perry had said, it was truly a collaborative effort here, working together to make all of this happen in a really short amount of time. And so I just want to say thank you to everybody who was involved to help make this happen. If you need to contact any one of us, feel free to do so. Our emails are over here. We also added a Remote Academy email that is specific to your families, so that it will get directed right to that Remote Academy email, so that it'll allow us to focus in on those certain questions without getting bombarded with many emails from things that are happening here in the school day and with remote. So it'll really help us kind of filter through all of those emails. So the email is remoteacademy3@sweethomeschools.org. And we'll make sure that we're, obviously looking at those emails every day. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email the Remote Academy email directly. And then of course, if you need to contact anybody from student services, Mr. Harriger, Mr. Critelli, Mrs. Seawick, and Mr. Reed, please feel free to do so as well. As we get started, I just want to take time to read this little quote here. It's super important that we take a step back, and as we're going through all of this, to be mindful that this was a huge undertaking, and it's not going to be perfect right away, day one on Friday or on Monday, and just asking that, we go into this with an open mind of, we're going to do whatever we can to make things the best that they can be, and work along the kinks when they do come up. So whether it's in person or on a computer, every one of us is about to experience our very first day for the very first time. So whether you're a teacher, a parent, an administrator, a student, we're all going through this for the very first time together. So we need to make sure that we have patience and that we're kind, and just reminding ourselves that we're going to get through it together. But we just need to make sure that we're allowing ourselves patience and being kind to one another. So to get started, when you're looking at your blue or gold track that you've received, the Remote Academy students are going to be a little bit different from our students who are in the hybrid model. You still will have a color, a blue color or a gold color, and it'll say blue remote or gold remote. And those colors are for for you and for us to determine if you decide after 10 weeks to come back into hybrid, that we have a place for you on a Monday or Tuesday or Thursday and Friday. So those colors will help us to navigate when the semesters or the marking period's done, you decide that it's safe enough for your child to come back, then we can strategically place you back into that hybrid model. And that's a huge piece over here on our end on the in-person, because there are restrictions as far as class sizes that we can't exceed. So that's where, you know, the wait list comes into play, because we have to make sure that we are, you know, not overloading classes with students, because we still have to maintain all of those social distancing mandates. So moving forward, your students will still have that blue remote and gold remote if they come back in hybrid. Right now, your students or your child is currently in a remote setting, so they will not be following a blue or a gold remote track while they are in the remote academy. And there's a reason for that, because we have our teachers teaching two different things. They're teaching their in-house students who are coming in person, and they are taking on all of the courses that we are offering for the hybrid model. So they're kind of doing two jobs here. They're taking care of their courses here in school and out of school. And in order for that to happen, we can't filter all of everything on a Monday and Tuesday for certain kids and a Thursday and a Friday. Does anybody else want to jump in on that to add anything that I might have missed?
As far as that piece goes, I think that covers
Okay.
it. Yep.
And we'll get through the schedule piece of what that will look like for students who are in the remote academy. So here is a list of all of the course offerings that we will have for our remote academy. And like I said, we really wanted to make sure that our teachers who are knowledgeable in the content, who have been living the content in the courses and teaching them, and making sure that they had the opportunity to teach those courses remotely for your children, because that was very, very important. So here's the list that we are currently offering for our remote students. And again, that will be tied with you know, our teachers here on our in person, who will be doing both. So the remote learning framework for our remote students in the academy, they will be provided with, each course will have 2 live sessions a week. And it's going to be based on the teacher's schedule. Because remember, the teachers are going to be in doing their in-person teaching with the bell schedule 1 through 9. But we'll also have to figure out when they have breaks, when they have planned periods, so that they can fit in those 2 live sessions per course. So they will be making sure that they reach out through Schoology on those courses of, you know, how they're going to meet with those students in that course via Zoom or Google Meet. And again, this is going to require a lot of patience and a lot of, you know, courtesy on, you know, both the student side and the teacher side, because it's going to be really tricky to navigate, and we're going to have to work through that. And it might not be set up right away on Friday or ready to be moved on Monday, because we're going to have to really work out what that looks like.
Yeah, so when we look at this remote framework, as we were just discussing, you're going to have 2 live sessions. So basically what we're trying to do here, and we've been able to succeed with it, is provide each of the remote students with 2 instructional periods in the same capacity as we're providing with the hybrid. So if you consider that hybrid track B or C, that first group that's coming in on Monday, Tuesday, they're receiving 2 instructional periods from English, social studies, math, science, and so on. And then they are going home for the rest of the week, and they are going to be working on projects and such through Schoology and through other matters, performance tasks that are going to enhance their knowledge in those content areas. So what we're trying to do with this particular piece is make sure that we're providing the same level of instruction. So what that means is obviously time. We need time and space to do that, but we also need people with certain expertise. I can't go and ask a teacher that's been teaching English for 15 years to go and do a great job of teaching an algebra class. So we're making sure that we're asking not only just math teachers, but we're asking teachers in those areas that have been teaching for quite some time, that have a good knowledge base, because it's going to be it's a challenging task, number one, to teach. It's challenging to be in the classroom and teach, but it's a different set of skill sets that you even need on top of that to be a remote teacher. So we really need the best teachers possible in that capacity, so they're not really worrying too much about the content. They know that kind of like the back of their hand, and they can focus their time and their attention on the students, and also on, obviously technology, because it doesn't always go smoothly. So we want to make sure that we have a little bit of time set aside for things like that. So I think the next slide is probably going to give us a matrix. Is that correct?
Oh, nope, not yet.
Okay.
I think it's after this one. Those two live sessions, that's where the synchronous instruction comes in. So you've heard that word a lot. Those are those real-time interactive teacher to student instruction where they'll be using Zoom or Google Meet. And these are the sessions that we want to make sure that your child are, jumping online for those sessions, because we want to make sure that they are connecting with their teachers for those two live sessions. And of course, it's also an important opportunity for them to connect with their peers and collaborate and have conversations and discussions around that. So that's where the two live sessions will come in, is that synchronous instruction that we're looking for. Attendance will be taken in the morning. We will have an attendance team that will meet with your children on Zoom or Google Meet to take that attendance for the day. It won't be a course teacher that your child might have. We're going to have an attendance team with four people working to check in, again, because we have to make sure that our teachers are kind of balancing both the in-school and remote. So we're going to have an attendance team that will take care of attendance, say good morning, have a great day, and kind of send them on their way. And we will give you information on those links of when your child should be signing in, but it will be just like the normal school day, 7:30 to 7:55 to take that attendance. And then they'll go off and start their day. So the schedule that you guys have received and that your children have received, there's actually two sets that they'll see. One set is for the remote period, and the other set is going to be your regular 9-period day schedule. And that's there in case you decide that it's safe enough for your child to come back to school on the hybrid model, then they have that. So what our students that are in the remote academy, they need to be focusing on the remote period only that's within their schedule. And the schedules, it's going to look a little bit different than compared to the others who are in the in-person, or when you look at that in-person one. And in the next slide here, you'll see that.
Yeah, so it's important to note on this that, not only are we trying to make sure, and I think we've, for the most part, have been able to accomplish this, set up a situation for not only a similar instructional experience for the remote versus the hybrid, and giving a qualified teacher, it's the same as what we would have versus the hybrid, but also trying to think and prognosticate ahead to what might happen. So if there is a shutdown, or if there is an opportunity, as we're mentioning here, to come back because we feel like at the 10-week mark we want to do that, or another child chooses to go back out, or there's a vaccine 6 months from now and we're all back in school, we want to make sure that we have the scenarios kind of covered, so that way, because that can, a lot of those things, especially a thing like a shutdown or a choose to come back, can happen in a pretty quick fashion. So we would want to make sure that that the schedule is set in that capacity, because a lot runs through the schedule other than just Johnny has a class first period. That first period is also linked to things like Schoology and other technology pieces, as we mentioned previously, attendance and all of those other features that kind of go into that, how we're going to be able to accept assignments and such, especially in we're trying to become more of a paperless society with the COVID-19 as well.
So for students who are in remote, they will still need to follow the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday high school bell schedule. And there's a reason for this because some of our teachers are actually going to have, there's going to be some teachers who are going to be Zooming in on a certain period on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And so it's important that we're following that bell schedule so that we, when your child is logging in for, let's say, third period for math, they know that it's that time that they need to go on and be there for that teacher during that time. On Wednesdays, it's going to be very different. On Wednesdays, that's the day where we have all of the students in the district are going fully remote. So, and it's a remote learning day. So in the morning on Wednesdays, teachers need common planning time to prep and get ready with all of their lessons, whether it's asynchronously, synchronously, for getting ready for their in-person. So they need that time to work within their departments. So they're going to have a chunk of time from 7:55 until 9:15 to work within their departments and plan. So students on Wednesdays, their days, they'll start on Wednesdays between 7:30 and 7:55 because they're going to check in with attendance and they're going to get started on some of the work that they have that's been pushed out asynchronously from teachers. And then at 9:20 till 2:30, that's when some live sessions are going to start happening for our students within the remote academy. Because remember, we want 2 contact times for each course with each teacher with each for students that are in the remote academy. And the Wednesdays allow us to do that. So we're going to kind of go through that right now as we go into it, and you can kind of see what that might look like for a remote student.
Yeah, so certainly we're calling Wednesday, whether it's the first contact time or not, for just for clarity and definition, we'll call that Wednesday as the first remote learning opportunity. So all of our class sessions will be available on that Wednesday, and they all have their designated time slots. So another thing that we have to kind of juggle is to make sure that there isn't a conflict, if you will, between one common class and another. For example, we want to make sure that a student that wants to get in and get their instruction for their algebra class, they are not in competition, if you will, with trying to get their English 9 instruction as well. So on Wednesday, it's a pretty simple format. We have about a 35-minute section of time for each of the subject areas, so that Wednesday kind of flows pretty nicely. And you'll be able to see that regardless of the math, you'll have that at a particular time in the morning at 9:20, in fact, for this one, to 9:50. And you can see art and so on. So if a student is not taking an art class, they get a little bit of a breather there, and then they're back in for the ELA. They don't have a tech class. They may not be, certain electives they may not be taking, but we want to make sure that we're accounting for everything, because if they are taking that class, we want to make sure that they're getting those 2 instructional periods. So that takes care of kind of the Wednesday piece. What we're also going to be doing is providing a second layer of instruction. So as you can kind of see from the schedule here, you have the Monday, Tuesday, and then the Thursday, Friday format, where you can see that there are certain subject areas that are kind of dedicated. And for the most part, there's some variation with this, because again, the goal is to try to provide as much consistency as possible, but also reducing the number of conflicts that might be available, to the students. So for the most part, you're going to see that your math is going to be on, say, a Monday. For the most part, you'll see your ELA on a Tuesday. And again, I'm just skipping through for sake of time with the cores. And you can see social studies being available on Thursday, and then Friday, a science. So what you're going to be, just for simplicity's sake, if a ninth grade student is taking a living environment course, they can expect more than likely that they're going to have a live session, instructional session through either a Google Meet or Zoom Meet on a Friday from their living environment teacher, and then also on a Wednesday. So they're going to have a Wednesday and a Friday instructional time. And then after that, they're going to be assigned work through Schoology and other technology tools to be able to get their work done similar, in some cases exact, in some cases similar to what the students are doing in a hybrid setting. And I would imagine in some cases, the only difference would be, when a deadline would be for a project. But again, it really depends on the subject area. It depends on the content as to what those performance tasks will look like and how similar they are. So you can see just at a glance, these would be, the time periods. But we will also have very specifics. We're in the process of developing a matrix right now to give students, parents, and teachers kind of a really solid understanding of when you're meeting. Because what we don't want to have is that inconsistency. Once we get into a groove and we know that we're meeting for math, say second period, and that's at 9:20 in the morning, we want to make sure that we're getting into a habit. Maybe we're even putting this on a Google Calendar, into our phones, whatever the case may be, so that way we know that we have this instruction for math on these two certain times, and then we have our English on these two certain times, and so on. So in a way, you have a schedule, and that schedule is a remote schedule, but it's not linear in fashion like, say, a hybrid would be, where you come in on a Monday and a Tuesday and you kind of just follow your classes in a row. It's kind of spread out over the course of the week a little bit more. And in some cases, that's a better situation for students, where they're not being, thrust into 7 or 8 classes in one given day. Or it may be a situation where, they have to be a little more patient, like we said at the very beginning, and you're kind of waiting for that instruction to kind of flow through to the end of the week.
Definitely. And again, that key word of patience, because, this is all new for all of us. And what that's going to look like, we don't know until we live it. And, there might be some conflicts that come up where, a student might be, having math, but there might be another conflict along the way. And those are things that we're going to have to work out along the way. But again, giving patience, and, as we go through this, and students who are in the remote academy, who are experiencing difficulty maybe with some asynchronous work, being mindful that, teachers are going to be, in class doing their part on another course with live students. So being patient with that, that response time of, I sent my teacher an email, I can't get into this, I'm looking for that answer. We really need that patience and grace period to allow teachers to, help that situation out, but it might not be immediately right away.
Yeah, sorry, but one more thing to kind of add to that. The music department is planning their remote instructional time period in that 10th period, if you will. So right after school kind of lets out, when the students are able to get onto their buses, which is approximately 1:45. So approximately 1:45 to about 2:30-ish. They will be setting up the schedule to be working with students that are in the performance groups of, band, orchestra, and chorus. And then they're going to be juggling that with obviously working with their hybrid, And then they're going to be bringing in some of their hybrid students on Wednesday mornings as well. So, so even the music is going to be covered through this capacity. There's not a lot. There's a few classes that we are offering in that 10th period spot because that's really the only place that a teacher really had. But for the most part, the classes are going to be fluid throughout the course of that 9-period day.
So when we are talking about after those 2 contact times within a course, your child is going to be doing some asynchronous instruction. And this is where Schoology plays a huge part in what the students are going to be doing independently when they're not with those live synchronous sessions with live teachers. So this is where Schoology, discussion boards might come into play, some think tech activities might be happening, or a teacher might have a screencast video of instructions moving forward. So that's that asynchronous instruction that you'll be seeing your children at home working on when they are not live with a teacher. Schoology is our platform that we're really going to be organizing a lot of our information through. What's nice is Schoology allows us to filter out the hybrid kids versus the remote kids. So your children, when they go on to Schoology, there's a way where, as a teacher side, we can filter through and separate the two, so they won't get confused with the assignments that the hybrid students are getting, or vice versa, so that it's streamlined in an easy way of organizing it. So they'll only be able to see the remote stuff that's happening on there. It'll be the same things, but I think it will help kids, since there's kids working Monday, Tuesday in person, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday out of school. And then we have, of course, our remote students who are working at home all 5 days. So the Schoology piece will be huge, but again, have patience with it. Teachers are learning all the new tricks to Schoology and really getting familiar with it and doing their best trying to navigate it. And it takes time to implement it and upload things, so just be patient with that. We're doing a lot of PDs around that, but Schoology will help organize and separate the hybrid versus the remote students. Again, this is what a typical Schoology course might look like. You would see some folders here that would give students the information that they would need and follow and organize. And we're working together really as a district-wide with teachers 3 through 12, coming up with an organizational system that's going to be easy to follow for students and for parents. The Schoology side is the side where you get to, as a parent, get to see, what assignments your children need to complete and need to be following, which is really, really important because, with the remote piece, whether you're a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or a Monday through Friday remote student, there's going to be a level of independence that happens that you're going to have to navigate, and having Schoology as the platform to organize all the assignments and the coursework will be very, very helpful. But just so that parents and family members, you can kind of take a peek of what that looks like and help them along. On our district website, there is a Schoology parent sign-up tutorial made from Mr. Peterson to guide you on how you can get the parent access to it and see all of the coursework that is posted. This is separately from the grade book that you would see. That's through PowerSchool, and that's where you would need to sign up through the parent portal. And again, there are directions on our website, directly on our district website, on how to access that parent portal. And that's where you will see the linking of the gradebook and the PowerSchool, that link. We did create a remote academy Schoology group. I've already started to add students in there, and they've already started asking me questions, which is great. This is a great way for us to connect as a whole remote academy Schoology group, and it will allow me to navigate, questions that they might have, or, push something out that maybe that the school is doing that we want them to be a part of so that they're not missing out on anything. And it will be just a great way for all of us to stay connected and have check in with the students who are within our remote academy. And we'll be talking about how they can access that. There's an access code right there. All they would have to do is go into their Schoology. They should get a notification that they were invited by myself to join into the group. So there are some learning routines and structures that need to be in place when we are talking about our remote academy, and really looking at what those expectations are when you are a remote learner. And we've broken it down into Panther Pride: preparation, respect, integrity, discipline, and effort. And really be thinking, how are you ready as a learner today? How are you going to treat others as a digital learner? Who are you when no one is looking? So what's that integrity piece of, you're not in a live Zoom session right now with a teacher, but, during that second or third period that you have off, what are you accomplishing? And, are you following the rules? Are you attending all of the classes every day? Are you checking your emails often? Is your camera on? Making sure that you're connecting with your teacher. I think one of the biggest things that we, miss out on is that human connection piece of that interaction face to face. And I know it's easy to kind of turn that camera off and you're listening, and there's times that, we've all maybe have done that. But in this, moving forward with school, it's super important that we're connecting and maintaining that connection with students and teachers, with those two connection times that they have. And then of course your effort. What are you being your best self? Are you trying? Are you creating thoughtful work? Are you taking a risk? Are you checking over your work? And these are all things that we are going to continually review on with our remote students, especially on Friday, and we'll get to that here in a second. But also going through all of these with the teachers too, so that we're all on the same page of these learning routines and structures to make sure that we have the best plan for our remote students and give them, give everyone that same opportunity. And I see staying on schedule. Yes, we have to stay on schedule because again, we're toggling back and forth with teachers having live sessions in person teaching. So it's super important that we're staying on schedule. And I know that's hard to manage. I know as a 5th grade teacher last year, it's super hard. You have kids, I overslept or I forgot. But it's super important that we're staying on schedule in this case because we are working with many different pieces here, and there's 9 of them with all different courses. Does anybody else want to add before we move on? Because I know we're looking at the time.
Yeah, I guess the only other piece to it is just, that we're going to have mechanisms in place for the students, and we, went through this last year with remote students in particular, and we're all, ready to start and put our best foot forward. But we have to make sure that, within all of this, if we're following what was just said, we're not going to have much of a problem. But, simply put, getting up at a reasonable time. Not going to bed, at 3 o'clock in the morning and gaming on the PlayStation and stuff like that. These are all things that we have to get out of the habits of. And for myself as an example, I've gotten my teenage boys out of that habit in the last few days, and they don't like me as much for it right now. But the fact of the matter is you can't stay up that late and be an effective person that next morning. So, within all of this, it's still, we need to manage and make sure that we're doing that. And if, we so happen to have a little bit more time on a Saturday to get some of our work done, I think most of our teachers are pretty appreciative of the fact that, when we have the time, we're gonna maximize that and get work done, as long as we're meeting deadlines and such like that. So some days are going to be a little less productive with some classes than maybe others, just because of how we're feeling and such. But overall, that consistency from week to week needs to be there. We cannot see a situation where a student is, works really hard for 2 or 3 weeks and then they kind of go dark on us for 3 weeks. And we haven't seen them. They've done minimal things. They haven't shown up for a Google Class, or they got the camera off. They're not participating. They're not doing the Schoology assignments and such. And then trying to rush last minute to get some things in. It's not going to work well that way. Because once you fall behind, it's much more difficult to get kind of caught up. It's sort of like, you get really, really sick and you're out for a week, and you come back and ask the teacher and try to get yourself caught up. At least you're physically there. With this, yes, you're getting some instruction online, but you're not there every single day to kind of get caught up a little bit at a time. It's going to make the student and the parent feel a lot more stressed if we don't just, chip away at it and take a little bit each day and try to get that done instead of falling behind.
Absolutely. And again, it's that patience, having patience, and really taking the next couple of weeks to get these routines into place, so that once those structures and routines are in place, then all of the academic learning can really start to unfold and work through. But we have to make sure that those routines are in place of, getting online and going onto that course and sticking to that schedule. And that we know that that's going to take time to get used to. And maybe other classes, it'll be, easier and faster to navigate. And then all of a sudden it might switch on a different day. Maybe Tuesdays are difficult. Mondays seem to be pretty easy and manageable. So we really need to allow ourselves, a couple of weeks to really navigate that and work those kinks out and get comfortable with it. We will be sending out a Remote Academy Learning Compact, and it will allow you and your child to go over what those expectations are. Saying that, we understand that, student participation during remote learning, that our goal here is that we have 100% student participation. And, we're going to do our part over here to make sure that we're helping and guiding and supporting as much as we can, but making sure that, again, we're all in this together, and that we're going to do whatever we can to make this work, so that, everybody at home who's doing their learning through the Remote Academy is getting everything that they need. So we'll be sending that out. We do have a student version one as well. So we'll send out the parent one and have the student one on hand as well. One of the biggest things that will be very, very useful for all of our students is to make a space for learning. This is actually one of my students from last year, ETN, took over the living room. Find a space that's going to be a space for your learning. We're going to talk about this on Friday with a lot of our kids that we meet. We'll get to that here in a second. But have that space so that you're going to your learning space every day throughout the day, where you can do your work. It's away from distractions as much as you can. So what to expect on Friday, September 11th is going to be a virtual day of learning for all students that day. And what's going to be very different here at the high school versus the elementary buildings and the middle school is, again, we have this difficult task of having two separate cohorts happening. We have the remote students and our in-person, but at the same time we have 9 periods, and we want to make sure that everything is seamlessly working. And in order to do that, we have a lot of moving parts with that. So what we thought would be the best way to handle this is to have the virtual day kind of split up between Remote Academy and the hybrid. So students on Friday would be meeting with teachers if they are in the hybrid model, the blue and gold kids that come Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. On Friday, September 11th, for Remote Academy students, myself, Mr. Perry, Mr. Zagoda, and our school counselors are going to take the day to, again, talk it through with just our Remote Academy students on what to expect in Remote Academy, and go a little bit deeper into what we can do to help and how we can navigate some of those scheduling things. pieces that are going to be difficult. So we're going to have a synchronous live session for students. They would go into Google Meet. For ninth grade, we would meet with ninth graders from 8 o'clock until 8:45. 10th grade, we would meet from 9 o'clock to 9:45. 11th graders, we would meet from 10 o'clock to 10:45 on Google Meet. And 12th grade, we would meet from 11 to 11:45. And we would practice what it would actually be like when you're working with synchronous and asynchronous sessions of meeting with a teacher, going off and doing some work, and then coming back with some live sessions again. So in the morning on Fridays, and I will send you all of the information and students' information on the Google Meets. The code would be remote 9 for ninth grade. 10th grade, the code would be remote 10. 11th would be remote 11. And 12th would be remote 12. And that will give us an opportunity to really narrow down each cohort by grade level to talk about, what the remote academy is going to be looking like and how to help navigate that. When we're not meeting live, when we're not doing the synchronous live sessions, students would have time for that asynchronous work throughout the day. So they would sign up for Schoology in our Schoology high school remote group. They would sign their Google Form Compact. They will watch a video of the difference between synchronous and asynchronous, and then even check in on a Think Tech lesson that we've created to have, to begin that asynchronous work that they're going to be used to in the next couple of weeks moving forward. And then at the end of the day, we would open up the sessions again for just a check-in to answer any questions that they might have of, things that they were trying to navigate in that time in the afternoon that they were doing some asynchronous work. And again, I would send out those Google Meets invites to everybody. They can jump on remote 9 for grade 9, remote 10 for 10th grade, remote 11 for 11th, and remote 12 during that time. So it'll allow us to really navigate the remote academy because they are so different from our hybrid students coming in every day. And then starting on Monday, that's when we would have time for you guys that next week to really meet your teachers and talk about what those sessions are going to look like when it's remote. All right. So I know that was a lot of information right away. But again, we want to make sure that we are, being mindful of our teachers here at school and their schedules, and being mindful with things that are happening at home, and making sure that students are getting, the course offerings, as many as we can offer with the amount of people that we have to allow this to work. There are a lot of moving parts to this in a short amount of time. And very, very, different from, what's happening with the elementary and the middle school, because we do have all of those moving parts with the schedule. All right, Scott Wolf, Mr. Wolf, would you like to open up do we have anything on the chat?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to comment. I don't know if you're on your end, Karen. I don't have access to the chat, so I don't know if you can see it on your end. If not, I have another plan. But do you see the chat on your end that you can open it?
Let me stop sharing here.
It may not have been activated in your account. That's why I'm saying that. Because what I would suggest, I mean, there's been a lot of information shared, and I know there have been people jumping in and out of this meeting because I've been keeping watch over that. We are recording this session, so you can always go back and hear about all the logistics of it. So if you come later, obviously you might have missed what it was said earlier. But do you see the chat function there, Karen?
I don't see it up there.
Okay, so this is what I would encourage you to do. Karen, maybe you can share your screen again, and why don't you put up the email for the Remote Academy 3. If you really have a question, something that just was not discussed tonight that you really don't understand, if you'd like to, I would invite you to go on your email. If you could open up another tab on your computer or your tablet or even your phone, and email your question to remoteacademy3@sweethomeschools.org. That's going to be the Remote Academy email for the high school. Again, that's Remote Academy, all one word, 3@sweethomeschools.org. And I'm actually in that account right now. If you email me, I can see if your email comes in, then I'd be happy to open that up and we can kind of take a few questions here. We have a few more minutes before we're done with the session this evening. Again, we appreciate people's patience to really listen through all the information, take in as much as you can. And clearly, there'll be a lot more information shared with students on Friday when they can meet by grade level with the different people from both student services and the administrative team. So if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to email. The other thing that's nice is that we'll also have a record of these and we can get these back out to people. Maybe we do have, we have a,
for not having that, the power of Zoom already. We're not even started.
I'm because there are a few people that they remembered of how they can raise their hand. We can have them, I'm gonna ask them to unmute, and then of course they can go ahead and ask their question, okay? So Corey Napora, if you could unmute yourself, please.
Hi, thank you. I just sent my email, but my son is also scheduled, he's enrolled in BOCES in the barbering program, and he was not supposed to be a remote student. I don't know how he got thrust into the remote academy. I didn't enroll him in the remote academy, but I've been talking to Mrs. Seawick and she's trying to get it fixed because he's supposed to be going to BOCES as well. So how will the remote academy work with the BOCES students?
So you want to be, I'm confused by the question. Are you trying to go hybrid or trying to be in?
He was supposed to be hybrid. I never enrolled him into the remote academy.
Okay.
He was supposed to be started as hybrid, but I have a elementary student who is in the remote academy. So I think he just kind of got tossed into remote when her application went in.
Sure. So what I would do is just give Mrs. Seawick another day or so to kind of try to get that cleaned up.
Okay.
The way he can work through the hybrid, program and attend his BOCES program and such.
Okay. Okay, because she told me he had to start as remote. And I'm confused because I don't know how he's going to start as remote and get to BOCES 2 days a week.
Yeah. Well, what we're doing is we're taking all the information for students and parents that, if they messed up and they, changed their mind or what have you, and just making sure that we can get them back in. So what I would do is just check back in with Mrs. Seawick tomorrow and, see if there's an availability to get him back into the classes. It is obviously a juggling act because we're trying to make sure we maintain that social distancing and all of that kind of thing. Right. So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for asking that question. Got an email question here from Juliana Clark. Just a couple things. What happens if there's a tech issue? No different than before when we started school in March. On your iPads, on student iPads, there is actually a button that you can click and you can do a help desk ticket right to our tech department. And they will address any of the tech issues you're having at home, connecting, using your iPad. If things are breaking down, they'll be able to assist you. So you can go in that. If for some reason your iPad's not working, that same tech department button is on the district main page. So you can also click it there. Again, it's a Google form. Our tech department was really good at keeping up with things when everything happened in the spring. So that's a way you take care of your tech issues. Same way as we go back. Question here about what happens if I have a doctor's appointment? And I think you have to think about that this is like regular school. And we know that people have appointments, they might be sick. The same thing goes if you're absent or sick, we're going to be taking attendance, but if you're absent, you're absent. That doesn't mean that people won't be checking in on you to find out why you didn't show up. But of course, you'll still have to provide not a doctor's note, but an excuse for that. And I know I talked to Ms. Delaplante that maybe if you're going fully remote, obviously, how are you going to get your excuses in? That is something that you could actually email in here at the Remote Academy 3 email. So we have a record of it, and we'll be getting out a template that you can use so that you can fill in all the information that you need to give us to let us know that maybe you were out that day because you were sick or had another appointment. Here's a question though for the team though. So how's gym going to work? They want to know about physical education.
Yeah, so just like all the rest of our classes and courses, I should say, there is going to be instructional time dedicated from our physical education department on phys ed. So we have certain days, just like if you're going to take an algebra class, you're taking phys ed, and you're going to have to log in, do your Google Meet / Zoom, whatever the teacher is doing. So you'll have some instructional periods with that, but then you're also going to have probably some activity logs and different kinds of things that they're going to ask you to do during the course of that given week. So you're still going to have some structured classroom-based time, but then in addition to that, you're going to have some activities and such that you're going to have to complete to get your phys ed requirement as per New York State.
Okay. Here's another question. Do students report to attendance or their attendance at 7:30 on September 11th, this Friday? You want to just readdress that?
Yep. So we're coming up with an attendance team for the remote academy. So they would come on Friday at between 7:30 and 7:55 to check in and say hello, and go off into the rest of the day where they will meet with the administration team and the counselors.
Okay. Here's another question here. They've not received their schedule for their high schoolers. So you might want to talk about how kids can access their schedule. And again, you know, how we might be going about setting up access for the parent portal. I know that there was a slide for that. There is a link on the district site or on the high school site to do that. But talk about the schedule just a second so people can understand how that's being delivered.
Yeah, so the schedule is available through the parent portal. You can look under Bellevue or Matrix, and it's going to be there for you to look at. If you're having troubles logging in, it's one of two things. Either there's an access issue, which Mr. Roberts is taking care of. So we can email him. You can email the counselor. We can get that forwarded over. If you're missing, you forgot your user ID or password because it's been a few months since you've used that, we do have that on file, so we can get that over to you. So it's one of those two things, but the schedule is located in there. And you're going to need to access that portal anyway, because there's going to be lots of other information in there, including grades and everything else that we talked about before. So definitely, if you haven't been able to get online yet, then shoot us an email real quick. You can either use the email that was already given, or shoot an email to the counselor, and we'll make sure that we get that up and running for you.
So I've got the email here. So Jasmine Wolford, I'll make sure that we get back to you so that you can get access to your portal, okay? Because you want some help with that. Why don't we go on, and we have a hand raised here. I'm gonna lower your hand. I'm gonna ask Amy. Why don't you? If you could unmute yourself if you have a question.
Hey, I don't think the kids are aware of the tech, or how they can like input a tech ticket, because last year I had a lot of kids, when there would be a problem, they would email me and then I would have to email them the tech team's information. So is there any way that when you guys do the meeting with them Friday that you can show that to them so they know where to do that? And maybe, I don't know if this is possible, if that's something that can be put into Schoology, because I don't think the kids know to go to the homepage of the school to look for that.
Absolutely.
Just something where it's like easier to access for them.
Yep, absolutely. And we'll make sure that, you know, when teachers are, you know, meeting with students next week and the week after, that they're, you know, reminding students of that, the help ticket, and where to find that. So it's not, we want to make sure that we're not just giving the kids the information on Friday and then boom, Monday, we're going to get into all the learning and navigating it. We really want to make sure that we're taking time in the next couple of weeks to, you know, make sure that those structures and routines are in place. Great suggestion.
Thank you.
So here's another question. Maybe you can clarify for the courses that might not be offered in Remote Academy. There's a question about geometry honors being offered. And maybe you can speak to this. There's many things that were able to be offered, but maybe there was a few.
Actually, that was one that was just recently added to the list. We had a teacher that kind of stepped up to kind of help us out with that. So we had a few students that were in a situation that needed that. There were in remote, not many, but there were a few. So that a geometry honors teacher is going to step up and work with those students. So we'll talk to that teacher tomorrow and see if we can get a game plan put together.
Okay, great. Here's another question. Will students be contacted by their teachers to set up those live learning sessions? And then will that contact be the same each week? I know you spoke to that a little bit, Ms. Delaplante.
Yeah, it's a situation where we're keeping it the same day and time each week. Okay, so you're always going to have the backbone. There is that number one Wednesday, that first contact. So when we had that original screen up on there, that kind of showed the exact time. So you're going to get another copy of that in the near future. But we're also in the process of finalizing the matrix for all the other 4 days in the week, where all of the teachers that are teaching remote and when they're teaching. Okay, so you'll have that as an organizational tool. Plus, you're going to have the teacher emailing and sending out, a Zoom or Google invite, with a date and a time on it. So hopefully that can kind of kickstart things. And then, like I said in the beginning, I think it's very beneficial for the students to then take it upon themselves to use some technology there to kind of keep themselves organized, whether that's their iPhone or their iPad, or even Schoology itself has a calendar inside of it, some type of mechanism to kind of make your schedule. Is that once we get that established and we get all the small little wrinkles out, which I think we have most of them out, but if there's a couple little kinks, we get those out, nothing's going to be changing really as far as the days and times that the students are going to be meeting. So that'll stay consistent from week to week.
Yeah, here's another question. It really hasn't come up in the conversation tonight, but really about students that, typically maybe in the middle school, we're getting extra support in like AIS, certainly some of our English language learners, how are we going to cover that, during Remote Academy? And then maybe kids that have maybe some counseling needs, or maybe they were meeting with a counselor. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I know Deb Spence is online here too, so she could probably talk a little bit to the special ed piece, but I know that right now we're in the process of working with the ENL teachers on kind of adjusting their day a little bit so that they have some flexibility the second half of the week to be able to work with students a little bit more directly. If students have counseling on an IEP at the high school level, then Dr. Lucci will be still providing services the same as if they're on a hybrid. So in fact, today we were starting to gather that list of new students together and freshman students alike to make sure that we have a full comprehensive list. So she'll be reaching out sometime next week to those students to start that process. So whether they're hybrid or remote, they're still going to receive that counseling service.
And we're working together too as a team to try to navigate, availability within building wide here with teachers of, possibly getting a learning center, virtual learning center up for students who are in our virtual academy. So we are brainstorming on the best way possible here to make that happen, and to front load something. I'm just looking at the time. This will shut off right at 7 if it's going until 7?
I don't think it will. I think you'll be
Okay.
okay as long as there's not another meeting scheduled, but I guess we're going to find out. And that's why I encourage you to, if you do have a question, certainly put it in the email. Again, that's Remote Academy, all one word, 3 at sweethomeschools.org. Just so you know, there are some people that have their hand raised. And one of the things that we're going to be teaching kids to do that's, I think, really important, especially when you don't have your video on, is that you always change your name. You rename yourself so that we actually know who you are. So I don't know who this person is, but it's GG8YP. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. I know you have a question, but again, one of the nice habits in this environment is to rename
Mr. Wolf, I didn't want to interrupt, but real quick.
Dr. Wolf.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Hold on.
Hi, it's Miss Ramadan, Hatsuki's mom. I'm wondering about school supplies for the kids. With everything being online, turning in work, so I'm thinking maybe there's nothing in print.
So a question about school supplies and how parents will know that, because I know there was things that were actually mailed out to students because I'm one of those parents, but go ahead.
Sorry, there was some feedback on that one. Yeah, most of the stuff will be done digitally, but I know that there are certain teachers that, they have certain books that they want to have students, be reading and participating in those discussions. So we'll work on that as, a game plan of how that will work and if that's feasible. Coming up with a time of, where would that pickup location be? We have to just take in consideration of sharing the materials and making sure that we're following all those guidelines.
One other thing to piggyback off of before we move too far along, Ms. Spence is on the line, but she's having some technical difficulties. She can't get the mute off. She's blaming it on me. Actually.
No, it's my fault. I can unmute her. Do you want to talk?
Yeah. Ty Critelli, Mr. Critelli's dying to talk too. He's been
no, and I actually tried to unmute him, but he didn't like listen to me. So go ahead, Debbie. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Scott.
Sorry about that.
Thanks, Scott. Both Scotts. I know going through, I was looking at the participants, and I know we have some parents of our CSE students here, and just wanted to, reaffirm for them that we spent as a department this morning time making sure that there is a special education teacher with each of the core classes where we have students enrolled in Remote Academy. And we're trying to do our best that teacher is also the same teacher should they return in the hybrid fashion so that there's some continuity. There's a couple exceptions to that because, like it's been said multiple times tonight, we have a regular schedule that we are also following in person. So when we provide services, some of it may be with the gen ed teacher at the same time. Some of those we may be reaching out to your students and maybe with your help, parents, to set up additional times or times, when they're not with their gen ed teacher. So if you have any questions about that, you can feel free to contact Student Services or myself will help you navigate those services.
Great. One other thing I kind of wanted to add in terms of, the transitioning piece, if we're coming back into the school or not. And we have to understand that this year, as we mentioned at the very beginning, it's a very fluid process. We're taking each week very seriously in terms of, you look at the COVID numbers and all those kinds of things, all the way through to the different triggering points of, the 10-week mark. We're making a commitment from a remote learner standpoint that we're going to be out the first 10 weeks and we're going to be following this model. And what we're going to be looking at is probably like around week 8 or so, asking parents if, are we staying on remote? Or are we coming back? So we're going to be coming up with a plan shortly for that particular piece. But we have to understand too that there's a lot of restrictions physically in the building in terms of what we can do. There's obviously caps on classes where in a traditional setting, you're going to have say 26 or 25 kids in a class. And if you gotta squeeze another person in, sometimes you can do it if there's a big enough classroom and you put an extra chair and a desk in there and a teacher might not like it, but it's doable. In this world that we're living in, this COVID world that we're living in right now, we have very, very strict guidelines in terms of what we can do and the number of students that we can have in classes. And traditionally, that's 12 students as a max. Some classes are a little smaller, some are a little bit larger, but on average, most of our classrooms are right at that 12. So the reason I'm saying this is because if at that 10-week mark, we want to come back, we may have to shuffle that class, the classes around a bit because we're under that cap and we have those classes kind of earmarked, but we also have social distancing guidelines to kind of look at too. So, it's a process where we're going to, work to our best to get everything back the way it was, but we definitely 100% cannot promise that. We can say that we're going to try, but we may lose an elective. We may not be able to get that particular honors class if we come back. It really kind of depends on how many students are in those classes because we cannot bend those rules. So just to kind of keep that in mind, it's not to, scare or threaten or anything like that. It's a reality that we're living in, and the counselors are living that every day, and the teachers are living that every day while walking into their classrooms right now and seeing the configuration and the way everything kind of looks. It looks very, very different to walk into a classroom today than, last September, last October. So just I kind of wanted to throw that out there to make sure everybody was aware of that. I'm sure you kind of had an idea of that, but that's kind of the world that we're living in right now.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Scott. And I know that we talked a lot about that when we had our earlier parent meetings about that. We'll do our best, but there are no guarantees because there are many, many factors involved. So thanks for sharing that. Just a quick question. There's a question about, do parents need to attend the meeting on Friday?
No, nope, just students only.
Yep,
Yeah, student only.
Okay. And then there is a lot of questions about, how to get on Schoology, how to access PowerSchool, the parent portal. First of all, if you're a parent of a student, you need to have access to the Schoology portal. So we need to make sure that we give you that access code. And definitely once you get into Schoology, if you have a child from 4th to 12th grade, you'll be able to access all of the Schoology for all your different kids in your family. But you have to have that certain access. Teachers can help you do that. There is, if you go on the district main webpage, there is still actually a link to a training session that was done by our tech coaches in the spring. You can actually listen. It's about 40 minutes long. Talks all about Schoology, talks about logging on. But we definitely need to help you if you're not on the parent portal or do not have access to Schoology as a parent to get you signed up. And it might take a little bit. We'll try to get taken care of, get you the access codes, but we'll work on doing that. I'm going to unmute April. I know you have a question. Go ahead if you want to unmute yourself.
Okay, yes, I have a couple of questions actually. So on my daughter's schedule, it shows nothing of what classes are remote. So she doesn't know, she's very confused on when she's supposed to be in classes and what classes are remote.
So it doesn't say anything, the REM or remote underneath it?
Nope, all it says it is in the afternoon at 1:30 and that's it. And it says it for the same thing. So she is totally confused. She does not have a regular schedule like you were showing in the thing.
Right. So you're going to see two different schedules. Like we had mentioned, you're going to see an in-person schedule in case they are come back into hybrid. And then the other piece will be the full remote schedule, and it won't be timed until we're meeting with teachers to navigate what those specific times are going to be. Scott or Mr. Harriger or Mr. Critelli, does it look any different on the student end when they're looking on PowerSchool?
Well, they should be if they're in PowerSchool and they're looking at their schedule, they should see not only a full gamut of classes periods, 1 through 9, as we explained earlier, but also in that REM section that you just explained, there will be, multiple classes there. What I'm going to suggest is if there is a blank there, it sounds like that's a phone call or an email to the school counselor tomorrow, just to kind of rectify and make sure that we're all on the same page. There's an error there. We'll fix that tomorrow for you.
Okay.
Thank you. Just to let you know, as I'm opening up some of the emails, some of these are like really specific questions to kids in their own program. So rather than having everybody else have to listen to this, I'm going to direct those emails so those can be answered individually to families, okay? So if you don't hear your question, it really means that maybe it's something that's just really specific to a specific family member. Just kind of jumping through here. This might be affecting, this question might be affecting a lot of families. My daughter's schedule has been changed to only 5 classes because not all of her electives are offered in Remote Academy. It appears that her schedule has only 2 to 3 classes a day, and most of her classes are in the afternoon. Is this accurate, or is this just something that's happening because of the way the schedule is being set up? And we can address the individual question because we have the email, but did you think that's a problem or?
No, again, the number of classes, there are certainly some electives that are not being offered. But again, that Wednesday is a pretty heavy day for remote learners. And then the rest of the learning opportunities are going to be spread throughout those other 4 days of the week, depending on the delegation of the day. So, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday are dedicated to one elective and one core area, so that we don't have to minimize those conflicts. So students should have, pretty much every level, they should have, for example, English, they're going to have 2 contact times, regardless of whether they're, a 9th grader or a 12th grader, and so on.
Okay. Also, thanks for sharing that. Also, as I'm noticing through, as I'm reading through emails, I'm getting a lot of emails from students, which I think are good. I'm sure a lot of these are going to be addressed on Friday. Again, I'm going to leave them open here. Students that are asking specific questions, but I know when you get with them on Friday, you can address a lot of these. Let's see, here's another question. Okay, here's a question. I'm a learning coach for 3 remote sons, okay? I would like to access their schedules to Schoology, and I would appreciate being pointed to appropriate resources and directions, access codes, et cetera. Again, I think that, we want to get you on Schoology. We want to make sure that you're able to access all of the 3 boys, in this case, different Schoology accounts. So again, if you do not have access to Schoology, we want to make sure that you get signed up. So I guess high school staff, we need to make sure that we're really on this with our remote families. And really those people that are really having trouble getting on the portal and stuff like that, we want to make sure that we're reaching out to them. All right. I'm going to mark that as unread.
Definitely.
We're going to be shutting down this meeting at 7:15. We've already been on for quite some time right now. And I always like to say, as we start to get close to 90 minutes, it gets really wearing on these kind of environments. Again, if you have any questions that haven't been answered, or maybe there's specific questions for your own kids, again, I invite you to go to the Remote Academy 3, all one word, sweethomeschools.org. Put your question down so that we can make sure that we respond to it. I'm going to open up and ask the Nelder Kids mom. I'm going to ask you to unmute your mic. And if you want to ask your question, this probably be the last question for the evening. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm just wondering, my kids are all supposed to be in the hybrid program. I'm looking at their schedules. I'd gotten a new phone and didn't download Schoology on it, so I'm not sure how much different that is from the Power School. With 2 kids in high school, it shows me 4 pages of like what the week is, but they're all the same. And then the 2 kids in middle school, it has like day 1 and day 2. And so I'm just wondering how all of this is going to work with trying to do this with 4 kids at home.
Yeah, I would say that part of it is going to be with the high school students, empowering them to some extent with the tools that we're trying to provide them with some organizational pieces. Certainly it's going to take a week or 2 and this is in any environment. This is not just a remote environment. It takes a little bit for a lot of our students to get reacclimated, especially after a summer. And they've been, in a non-structured setting, we'll call it that, for a lot longer than that. So, for the students at the high school level in particular, what we need to do is kind of let them, work through that first week and see how things are going. As a parent, you're going to be communicating with them and seeing where their questions and concerns are. As counselors, all 4 of us kind of follow that same philosophy, and we like to empower our students to ask those questions and to us directly. It's not to frown upon having a parent call us or to email us, but it's one of those maturity things, and it kind of helps to kind of bring things along to get them to find the resources and people to use and people to ask questions to. And the more that they feel comfortable with that, the more they're more likely going to participate in classes, to ask questions when they have questions there. So what I would do is, kind of let that first week kind of flow through. And if they're really kind of crashing and burning, then give one of us a call and we can kind of chat with you and figure out where the problems are. But I think after we kind of get this ball rolling, I think they'll kind of see what their schedule is and what it looks like and start to become more comfortable with it. And by week 2, they'll probably feel pretty good with it.
And if I could just chime in. Hi, everyone. I was finally unmuted. listen, this is like we've said, this is something that none of us have ever experienced. And I'll say this, and I always say this, please, your children and you are not alone. Please email the counselors. Let us help you guys. Let us help your children. And if there's any confusions or you just don't know, just give us the opportunity to at least help out. And then if we can't solve that, then we'll try to work through this the best that we can. Hopefully by 2021, 22, this is all behind us, and we're back to a normal.
I think those were some words to close by. Thank you, Mr. Critelli, for some great words of wisdom there. Again, just to let everybody know, we did record this session, so it will be available. So should you want to listen to it again, or maybe you came in late. Again, if you do have any questions, we encourage you to email the Remote Academy 3, all one word, sweethomeschools.org. People will get back to you around those questions. And of course, that's open all the time. You don't have to just do that right now. We'll be looking at that. But I appreciate, again, families for coming out tonight, students for being online, listening a little bit about this, as Mr. Critelli said, was a tremendous undertaking, and it still happens to be. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Perry now, if you have any closing words, Mr. Perry. Oh, let me unmute you, huh? That might help. Best thing to do to the high school principal, mute them. There you go.
That's okay. I just want to thank everyone again for coming out this evening and listening. I know there's a lot of information that was given. As you can see, it was definitely a collaborative effort on the part of administration and student services to ensure that your son or daughter is going to have a excellent experience with the Remote Academy. Now, with that being said, as they talked about, and I won't talk too long, but there will be some bumps in the road. So I definitely encourage you to reach out to administration as well as the counselors if you have any concerns or any problems. But we look forward to a great start to the year and moving forward and getting through this together. So thank you and have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.